Have you ever wondered what really changes a life? Not in a superficial way, like a New Year's Eve goal or a promise made in a hurry, but real change. The kind that no one sees in the first few days, but that changes the way you breathe, think, walk. What can 81 days do to your life? Maybe the answer is not in the number of days, but in the type of identity that begins to emerge within them. Time in itself does not heal, does not transform. What transforms is what you allow to flourish as time passes. And here is the first invitation. Stop counting the days as if they were steps towards a result. Start counting the days as if they were seeds. Because at the end of 81, you will not be celebrating a goal. You will be burying an old self and being reborn towards who has always existed within you. Most people give up before the 30th day. They do not fail for lack of discipline. They fail because they continue to seek transformation with the same mind that brought them here. The enemy has never been effort. The enemy is the absence of vibrational direction. When your soul doesn't understand the reason for a change, it simply doesn't sustain the energy needed to make it happen. You sabotage yourself not because you want to fail, but because you're trying to force something that doesn't yet make sense within your emotional field. Motivation dies because it hasn't found roots. It's born strong and excited, but it falls apart at the slightest wind of doubt. And this is where Napoleon Hill's forgotten wisdom comes in. Hill wasn't just talking about success. He was talking about mastering the mind. He understood that without a defined mind, the world defines you. The mind, if untrained, is a slave to circumstances. But when you plant an idea with emotional intensity, with clarity of purpose, and repeat it with faith, it becomes law in your subconscious. That's what Andrew Carnegie taught Hill. That repetition without purpose is just noise. But repetition with intention is reprogramming. Blind habit is prison. Creative habit is a portal. And that's the difference you're about to experience. You will realize that everything that is holding you back is not a lack of strength. It is excess noise. Mental, emotional, spiritual noise. Beliefs that tell you that you have already tried before. Internal voices telling you that you do not deserve it. Fragments of an old self trying to survive your evolution. And these fragments scream. They will scream, especially between days 7 and 21. Because it is at this moment that the mind realizes that something real is moving, and it goes into resistance mode. It is natural. It is human. But it is not definitive. It is just the old you asking not to die. This 81-day journey is not about being a better version of who you are. It is about no longer being who you have never been. You will feel discomfort. You will lose yourself, but you will also find yourself. Because the inspiration you feel now, that spark that brought you here, will not last if it is not transformed into practice, into frequency, into ritual, into reprogramming. So, do not seek to feel ready. Seek to be present. Enough to allow each day to open a new crack of light in your being. Because in the end, it won't be your habits that will change. It will be your entire field, your vibration, your essence. You are about to cross a bridge. And on the other side, there is no new goal. There is a new state of being, a new silence within you, a new listening, a new name. And yes, maybe you don't recognize the world around you, but it doesn't matter because you will recognize yourself. And that's what matters. You will remember that you were born for this, not to survive the days, but to be reborn in them over and over again, with courage, with presence, with faith. Beware of the almost trap. The almost is treacherous. It disguises itself as progress. It looks like movement, but it is merely the elegant repetition of an invisible cycle. The one where you start, feel something new blossoming, but before it can take root, something in you pulls back. It is not laziness. It is not a lack of will. It is fear of losing the old version that still believes itself to be you. The almost appears on day 7, on day 14, on day 21, always at the moment when change approaches the body, not just the mind. And that is scary, because changing requires dying to the known. Changing requires breaking internal contracts that you did not even know you had signed. The mind goes into resistance when it realizes that something is truly changing. It prefers the known pain to the unknown pleasure. It prefers the pattern that makes you sick to the expansion that disorients you. And that is why so many pull back at the very moment they are about to cross the threshold, because that is when the illusion of old control breaks, and emptiness appears, and emptiness hurts, because it is not absence, it is space. And space is scary for those who have always filled everything with occupations, excuses, distractions. The trap of almost is not in failure. It is in the interruption of energy at the point where it would begin to stabilize. You need to recognize that this cycle is not rational. It is vibrational. It is an energetic reflection of traumas that told you that it is dangerous to shine, that it is risky to go all the way, that it is not worth persisting. But these traumas are not you. They are parts of you that have learned to survive by avoiding the new. Honor these parts, but do not kneel before them. Walk, even if you are afraid. Even if you feel the old screaming, walk. Because on the other side of this abyss is the beginning of a vibrational field where almost no longer exists, where only what is whole exists. What is you? What is ready to be born? Because you will never be disciplined if you do not understand your vibrational trauma. Discipline is not willpower. It never was. Discipline is the visible effect of an aligned identity. It is the natural frequency of someone who knows, with their entire body, what they are building. But when there is vibrational trauma, this frequency is broken, and every attempt to maintain a new habit becomes an internal war. It becomes a fight against old ghosts that have not been released, only ignored. What many call lack of focus is, in fact, a body that still lives under the command of unintegrated pains. It is a mind that tries to move forward, but a nervous system that has learned to run away whenever it feels threatened by growth. There are emotional roots behind every pattern of compulsion, procrastination, and escape. They are memories imprinted in the vibrational field, not just in thought. They are experiences that told you at some point in your life that it was safer not to try, that it was safer not to change, that effort would be useless, that success would bring abandonment, that joy would come with guilt. And when you don't look at these roots, every new habit becomes a silent battlefield. You demand of yourself, you get frustrated, you compare yourself, but you never realize that you're fighting against an identity that has not yet been healed. And no productivity technique can solve this. True reprogramming begins when you stop trying to change your behavior and start reconfiguring your identity, when you understand that it is not laziness, it is protection, that it is not sabotage, it is old survival. When you look at yourself with enough compassion to say, I understand why I am afraid, but I am ready to move forward anyway. At that moment, discipline stops being an effort and becomes a natural expression of a being who is healing their vibrational field. Consistency is born from belonging. You only sustain what you already recognize as part of who you are. Therefore, before trying to control your habits, allow yourself to listen to your wounds, because it is in them that the new version of you is hidden, waiting to be felt, and finally released. The fatal mistake of those who try to manifest without stabilizing their emotions. Manifesting is not just about wishing. It is not about repeating pretty phrases in front of the mirror or writing goals in a notebook with good handwriting. Manifesting is a deep, vibrational process. It is when intention and emotion dance on the same frequency. But what happens to many is the opposite. The mind wants, but the body screams fear. The soul contracts. The frequency does not support what is desired, and this mismatch generates frustration. It generates doubt. It generates the false sensation that something is blocked. But there is no blockage. There is incoherence. And where there is incoherence, there is no manifestation. Because the vibrational field does not respond to what you think, it responds to what you vibrate with constancy. This misalignment has a neurobiological basis. When you affirm something that has not yet been emotionally integrated, the nervous system reacts with distrust. It feels the contrast between what is being said and what is being felt. And this internal conflict activates the stress axis. The body goes on alert, the mind becomes fragmented, and energy, instead of expanding, disperses. Desire becomes anxiety. Affirmation becomes demand. Visualization becomes demand disguised as hope. And little by little, spiritual practice becomes yet another source of pain, because you begin to believe that you are making mistakes even in the things that should heal you. True manifestation begins in the body. It begins in the vibrational ground that you tread on every day. It begins with the emotional stability necessary for the mind to be able to imagine and the heart to be able to believe. There is no point in imagining a different future if you still vibrate the fear of the past. There is no point in wishing for abundance with your chest closed by the scarcity that you have learned. Before any technique, there is a field to be re-educated, an emotion to be pacified, an inner security to be cultivated, and this security is born from acceptance, from looking sincerely at everything you feel, without rushing to change, without urgency to resolve. Because when the emotion stabilizes, the vibration rises. And when the vibration rises, reality inevitably begins to bend. Because the external world has no choice when your internal world aligns. The illusion of silent progress. There are times when it seems like you are moving forward. You get busy, you do tasks, you maintain a routine. But deep inside, something remains still. The soul does not move. The field does not change. And you realize over time that you were just keeping busy, not growing. This is the illusion of silent progress. The movement that imitates evolution, but actually hides stagnation. The soul knows. It feels when there is real expansion. And it also feels when everything that is being done is an attempt to fill the void with action. But spiritual, emotional, vibrational growth is never about doing more. It is about feeling different, vibrating differently, choosing more consciously. It is easy to confuse busyness with progress, especially in a society that values productivity more than presence. But being busy is not the same as being in transformation. Being busy is often just being distracted. Distracted from yourself, distracted from your inner calling, distracted from the pain that needs to be looked at, felt, transformed. True growth leaves its mark. It changes the way you wake up, how you breathe, how you react to silence. It creates a new internal atmosphere. It doesn't exhaust you, it frees you. And this liberation has a sign: peace, peace, even in the midst of chaos, peace, even without having all the answers. To break free from the illusion of progress, you need to create markers of vibrational advancement. Not external goals, but internal perceptions. How you react to what used to knock you off balance. How you take care of yourself when you feel fragile. How you allow yourself to be honest with what you feel. These are the signs of a new being being born. And this new being doesn't measure its evolution in tasks accomplished. It feels its expansion in layers of truth that were previously hidden. Real progress isn't noisy, but it's not invisible either. It reveals itself in the small silences in which you finally start to listen to yourself and realize that you're different, even if the outside world hasn't noticed yet. Why focus without clarity is just emotional torture. Focus by itself is not transformative. It may even seem like a virtue, but without emotional clarity, it becomes a prison. Because concentrating energy in a direction that the soul does not recognize is like running towards the desert hoping to find an oasis. It is exhausting, it is frustrating, and it generates a type of pain that is not easily explained. The pain of trying with all your might, something that is not aligned with who you really are. That is not focus. That is desperation, disguised as determination. It is soulless effort. It is meaningless movement. And the body feels it. It contracts. It gets sick. It tries to warn you, but the mind does not listen. The mind needs emotional direction, not just goals. It needs to know where it is going and why it really matters. It needs to feel the vibrational meaning of what it is seeking. Otherwise, focus becomes torture. You blame yourself. You compare yourself. You wear yourself out. And in the end, even when you achieve a result, you feel like something is missing. Because you were missing. You were missing presence. You were missing truth. Clarity is not born from reason. It is born from listening, from silence, from connecting with the real desire behind the apparent goal. When there is emotional clarity, focus becomes light, because there is coherence between what you want and what you feel. And energy flows. You can't force it. Napoleon Hill knew this, and that's why he proposed not just goals, but a functional vision, a practical, emotionally charged visualization that put the mind in a state of vibrational certainty. It's not about imagining what you want. It's about feeling as if it were already real. It's about impregnating the field with the vibration of what you want to create, not from the outside in, but from the inside out to the world. Clear focus does not generate anxiety. It generates direction. And this direction has a flavor of truth that calms, sustains, and guides. Because when you know what you are creating and why you are creating it, the path stops being a burden. It becomes a ritual of presence, a journey back to yourself, the root of giving up, lack of a defined emotional purpose. You don't give up because you're weak. You give up because you're trying to sustain a path that doesn't speak to your core. What keeps someone moving for 81 days is not willpower. It's an emotional connection to a purpose that makes sense even when everything hurts. Without this connection, any goal becomes a burden, any routine becomes a prison, and any difficulty becomes an argument to stop. When the purpose is disconnected from the emotional field, it has no vibrational support. It may look good on paper. It may impress others. It may make logical sense, but it doesn't nourish. It doesn't feed. It doesn't vibrate. The burning desire, as Napoleon Hill called it, is not just a strong desire. It is a deep decision that aligns with all the layers of your being. It is when the body, mind, and soul enter into coherence. When what you want already pulses within you as truth, even before it happens. This type of purpose is not born from comparison. It is not born from lack. It is not born from the fear of falling behind. It is born from the reconnection with what is essential, with what has always been yours, with that which, even when everything falls apart, is still there, whispering deep down, keep going. When this purpose is clear, it becomes a beacon, even on days when you feel blind, even in moments when nothing seems to be working. It is the anchor that prevents shipwreck. It is the silent certainty that sustains the tired body. It is the subtle fire that warms even when the world seems cold. So, before asking if you have enough discipline, ask if you have a why that touches your soul, because that is what defines everything. It is not about how much you want it. It is about how much it represents you, how much you see yourself on this path, how much this path is a calling, and not just an escape. When the purpose is real, it does not require effort. It invites, and you answer, even if in silence, even if trembling, even if falling and getting up, because you know that something inside you has already arrived, even before crossing the finish line. The hidden factor that sabotages your transformation: guilt. Guilt is a silent poison. It doesn't scream, it whispers. And this whisper, even if almost imperceptible, weakens your vibration. It disconnects you from abundance. It makes you question whether you really deserve the change you desire so much. Guilt is there, often disguised as prudence, self-criticism, awareness. But in truth, it is an echo from the past, a reflection of old, unresolved experiences that still carry pain, shame, regret. And this pain, unintegrated, turns into self-sabotage, because deep down, you feel that you are not worthy, that you are not enough, that you still need to suffer a little more before you receive. This guilt does not arise on its own. It is planted over the years by external voices that have become internal voices: parents, teachers, religion, culture, all telling you that you need to deserve it. that you need to try harder, that you need to pay the price. And then, even when you start to change, when you feel your vibration rise, something inside you retreats, because there is an unspoken pact with suffering, a silent belief that too much lightness is irresponsibility, that too much abundance is selfishness, that joy without reason is dangerous, and so you sabotage yourself, not because you want to fail, but because you believe that failing is safer than shining. Guilt disconnects your frequency. It holds you to what was instead of opening you to what can be, and until you look at it with compassion, it will continue to interfere in your 81 days of transformation, because it does not disappear with effort. It dissolves with presence, with truth, with the recognition that you no longer need to carry pain that is not yours, that you have paid enough, you have suffered enough, you have held yourself back for too long, and now it is time to let go, not out of arrogance, but because you deserve it. Because you deserve it. Not because you did everything right, but because you're willing to be new, to vibrate differently, to let light enter where before there was only shadow. And this act in itself is redemption. It is already liberation. It is already healing. How fear of judgment neutralizes your frequency. Fear of judgment is more paralyzing than failure. It is subtle, but profound. You may not even realize it is there, but it shapes choices, alters words, blocks actions. It makes you edit who you are to be accepted by those who do not always see the real you. And in this silent and constant movement, your frequency begins to distort because you stop vibrating who you really are and start emitting what you think others expect. But this energy, this attempt at emotional adaptation, creates noise. It creates disconnection. You may be acting with good intentions, but the field does not lie. It senses when you are not being authentic. And when authenticity disappears, manifestation also disappears. There is a very old pain in this fear, the fear of not belonging, the fear of being rejected, of being seen as different, exaggerated, too sensitive. These are traumas that began in childhood and were reinforced by society. The body has become accustomed to containing its brilliance, to hiding its enthusiasm, measuring your words, shrinking yourself to fit in. But the price for this is high, because your essence was not born to fit in. It was born to expand, to express, to be. And every time you keep quiet for fear of what people will think, a part of your frequency closes, and a part of your soul is erased. Freeing yourself from this fear is not a sudden gesture. It is not a forced exposure. It is a process of reconnecting with your truth, one step at a time, one authentic gesture a day, one unrestrained word, a respected silence, a sustained gaze. And over time, your field begins to remember who you are without filters. And this memory is powerful because the more you expose yourself truthfully, the more you align with your mission, and the more you align, the more the universe responds. Because the universe does not move by masks, it moves by coherence. And your coherence is your greatest power, not to convince anyone, but to live in peace within yourself, where no other people's judgment can enter anymore. Because there is no longer any gap, only truth, only presence, only you, whole, available, real. Discipline is not born from force, it is born from identity. The idea that discipline is the fruit of constant effort is a myth that has sickened minds and disconnected souls. Because when you believe that you will only be able to maintain a path with pressure and rigidity, you begin to see your journey as punishment, and not as expression. But true discipline is not born from force. It is born from identity. It emerges naturally when what you do is aligned with who you are. And that is why so many people give up, because they are trying to maintain habits that do not reflect their essence. They are forcing routines that do not dialogue with their deepest values. And the body resists. The mind tires. The spirit becomes silent. What many call obligation is, in fact, disconnection. You cannot sustain something that has no roots within you. You can even insist for a while, but it will be like carrying a weight that does not belong to you. And sooner or later, this weight turns into guilt, shame, exhaustion. When discipline comes from identity, it does not weigh, it flows. It becomes part of your energy field. And this is only possible when you transform the obligation into a sacred commitment, not to the result, but to your essence, to your presence, to your truth. This commitment is not visible to the eyes. It does not need to be validated by anyone. It is a silent pact between you and your soul. It is a decision to live coherently, even when no one is watching. It is waking up every day and remembering that each small choice is a vibrational affirmation of who you are becoming. When you recognize yourself in your actions, discipline ceases to be an effort. It becomes a reflection of your new identity, of your new frequency, of your new self. Discipline, then, is no longer the path to get somewhere. It is the place itself, the place where you are, where you remember, where you remain, because it is no longer a goal. It is who you are. Dopamine as a silent saboteur of your transformation. We live in an era in which instant pleasure has become common currency. Social media, notifications, quick rewards, all designed to activate dopamine, a neurotransmitter that, when misunderstood, turns from an ally into an enemy. The problem isn't with dopamine itself, it's with the vicious cycle it fuels. Your brain has learned that giving up and distracting yourself are more pleasurable, more immediate, and easier to achieve than sustaining a new habit. And every time you interrupt a process of transformation to seek relief, your brain rewards you. It says, "Good job, you're back in the familiar zone. It's safe here." And this reward, however subtle, weakens your staying power. This cycle is invisible, but powerful. You start something new, a project, a ritual, a process of change, and for the first few days, everything is fine. But at some point, discomfort sets in, doubt, boredom, anxiety, and without realizing it, you seek relief. You pick up your phone, you eat something, you put off the task, you stop practicing, and at that moment, your brain understands that running away is better than staying. And the more this pattern repeats itself, the harder it becomes to maintain any kind of consistency, because your system has already learned to avoid discomfort, even when that discomfort is exactly what precedes transformation. The key is to re-educate your relationship with dopamine, to consciously choose to delay reward, to create pleasure in permanence, not an escape. This is not punishment, it is reconnection. It is teaching your body that there is a deeper, more stable, more vibrational pleasure in constancy, in surrender, in presence. And when this new association is formed, everything changes, because the brain begins to reward you for expansion, not regression, for truth, not distraction, and transformation ceases to be a sacrifice and becomes a new state of pleasure, a pleasure that does not shout, that does not beg, that does not distract, but that sustains, that illuminates, that integrates. A pleasure that is, above all, peace. The cycle of emotional self-sabotage in 3 acts. There is an invisible script that repeats itself in many transformation journeys. An emotional cycle that begins with desire, goes through effort, and ends, almost always, in self-sabotage. In the first act, everything is hope. Desire appears like a light. There is enthusiasm. There are plans. There is movement. But the second act requires something deeper, conscious effort. And this is where most people start to falter, because true effort is not physical. It is vibrational. It is the effort to stay when the old one starts to scream, to trust when the results have not yet arrived, to sustain the new frequency without immediate guarantees. This is where the third act begins, the act of subtle sabotage, small delays, logical justifications, redefinition of goals, setbacks that seem strategic but are emotional escapes. And when you realize it, everything starts again. A new desire, a new attempt, a new giving up, and the cycle repeats itself. Not for lack of will, but due to a lack of awareness of the pattern, because sabotage is not a rational gesture, it is a learned response, a defense mechanism of the emotional body that fears change more than it desires victory. Rewriting this script requires presence. It requires noticing the exact moment when the body begins to seek escape, and instead of giving in, choosing to remain, not with rigidity, but with intention, with clarity, with compassion. It is in this space that something new is activated, a new narrative, a new energy, a new cycle, the cycle in which desire does not die in the effort, and the effort does not end in escape, the cycle in which you allow yourself to go through the 3 acts and reach the 4th, the one that almost no one knows about, the act of integration, where what you want and what you feel finally walk together, where your energy does not betray you, where your soul finds a path and does not go back. The frequency of chaos. When your routine is disorganized, your soul is too. Disorganization is not just an external issue. It's not just the pile of clothes in the corner of your room, the delayed schedule, the forgotten appointments. Disorganization is a vibrational reflection, an emotional mirror of what's happening inside you. When your soul is out of alignment, the world around you also becomes misaligned, because the field emits what it carries. And when the field is full of confusion, overload, noise, reality fragments, tasks multiply, time seems to slip away, life becomes urgent. But behind all this, there is only one unspoken truth. Your soul is asking for silence, order, space. Organizing your life is not about efficiency. It's about frequency. It's about creating an environment that supports the version of you that is emerging. It's about adjusting the external so that it doesn't sabotage the internal. Because there is no meditation that can withstand constant chaos. There is no visualization that can flourish in a disorganized energy field. There is no transformation that can stabilize in a body that is constantly putting out fires. The soul needs rhythm. It needs repetition. It needs a safe ground where it can expand. And this foundation is built in the details, in daily choices, in small rituals, in conscious pauses, in the way you prepare your day, in the way you end your night. Organization, when seen as a spiritual practice, changes everything. It stops being an obligation and becomes a support, a vibrational support for your expansion. You begin to realize that each thing in its place is not control. It is relief. It is space for the new. It is permission for the flow. And when the flow is established, life begins to respond. Because the universe does not send abundance to the field where confusion reigns. It waits for you to make space. And this space does not open only with intention. It opens with action, with presence, with energetic responsibility, and above all, with love for yourself. Because organizing the world outside is one of the most silent ways of saying to your soul, I welcome you. I listen to you. I give you structure to grow. Ward, the sculptor's metaphor. You need to destroy in order to form. Transforming yourself is a creative process. But before you can create, you need to destroy. Not through violence, but through energetic necessity. Because the identity you want to build has no place in an old structure. There are habits that need to be broken, beliefs that need to be dissolved, relationships that need to be reviewed, environments that need to be left behind. And that hurts, because the ego clings to the known, even when that known is a prison. It fears emptiness. It fears the silence between what has already been and what has not yet been born. But this silence is sacred. It is in it that the new begins to breathe. The sculptor's metaphor shows us this clearly. The sculptor does not create the image. He reveals it. He removes the excess. He removes what does not belong. He destroys with intention, with presence, with love for the form that is still hidden inside the stone. And you are that stone. You are not broken. You are in the process of being revealed. Every part of you that seems to be crumbling, maybe it's just giving way to a truer version. Every habit that falls apart, maybe it's just making room for a new flow. Every structure that crumbles, maybe it's just the end of the prison and the beginning of freedom. This conscious destruction activates neuroplasticity. When you let go of old patterns, your brain starts to create new connections. new pathways, new responses. The body, the mind, and the field start to talk to each other differently. But to do this, it takes courage to empty, to let go, to detach from what no longer resonates with who you are becoming. It's not a loss, it's a liberation. And often, the soul only expands when the old ground disappears, when there's no longer anything to stand on, when the past crumbles like dust, and the present becomes the only possible place. It's in this naked, raw, real present that the sculpture of who you are begins to emerge. Not by magic, but by choice, choosing to allow yourself to be revealed, without rushing, without fear, with truth, with faith. The exact moment when most people give up, and how to overcome this abyss. There is a critical point in the journey of transformation, an invisible plateau where the energy seems to stagnate, where the initial enthusiasm has already dissipated, but the fruits have not yet been born. It is the gap between the decision and the result, and it is at this exact moment that most people give up, not because the change is not happening, but because it is happening silently, deeply, underground. And the mind, accustomed to quick rewards, interprets this silence as failure. It interprets this plateau as a sign that nothing is working, but it is exactly the opposite. It is at this point that the transformation is taking root, consolidating, taking shape within the invisible. This abyss has a symbolic day, day 43, the day when the initial impulse no longer carries you and the new identity has not yet fully established itself. It is the day when the old self makes its last attempt to return. It whispers memories, it activates old desires. He invites you to give up with arguments that seem sensible, but they are just emotional traps. Day 43 is a rite of passage, a call to stay, to sustain the frequency even when reality has not yet changed, to trust in the invisible, to honor the process. Getting through this moment does not require extra effort. It requires ritual. It requires presence. It requires remembering why you started. And more than that, it requires remembering who you are becoming. Because at this moment, it is no longer about goals. It is about being. It is about identity, about permanence, about vibrational coherence. And when you choose to keep going, even without guarantees, even with doubts, even when tired, something powerful happens. The field responds, the body realigns, the mind quiets, and the soul smiles, because it knows you have crossed the abyss. And on the other side, there is no prize. There is the reunion with that which no circumstance can take away from you, your truth, your purpose, your vibration. And that, yes, is indestructible. How to transform emotional pain into quantum fuel. Pain is not a punishment. Pain is a portal. It does not arise to punish you, but to summon you. All emotional pain, when received with awareness, can be transmuted into creative force, into vibrational impulse, into energy for expansion. But to do so, we need to break with the logic we were taught, that pain needs to be denied, avoided, stifled, because what you avoid dominates you. What you repress becomes stronger. But what you feel with presence transforms. When you experience an emotional breakdown, everything seems to fall apart. Thoughts get jumbled, the body shuts down, the soul becomes silent. But it is precisely in this state of collapse that energetic reconfiguration becomes possible, because the collapse dismantles structures, and where there was once rigidity, space is born. A new field opens up, and it is in this field that you can plant another frequency, a frequency of truth, of courage, of conscious surrender, not the surrender of someone who gives up, but of someone who surrenders to the greater flow of life. Transforming pain into quantum fuel is an act of internal alchemy. It is taking what is left of the fall and transforming it into presence, into power, into clarity. It is using each tear as an element of reprogramming, because the vibrational field responds to emotion, and the deeper the emotion, the more powerful the realignment. Pain has density, And this density can be channeled, it can be elevated, it can be consecrated. The secret is not in erasing the pain, it is in listening to it until it reveals what it really came to teach you. Because all pain carries a code, a hidden wisdom, an invitation to a new state of being. And when you accept this invitation, what seemed like destruction reveals itself as birth, and what seemed like the end shows itself as the key to your next level of expansion. How changing the environment is more powerful than changing your thinking. The mind is shaped by the environment. Every object around you, every color, every sound, every smell, every texture, all of it is communicating something to your subconscious. And often, these silent messages are supporting patterns that you believe you are trying to change with positive thinking alone. But thinking, as powerful as it is, needs a fertile ground to flourish. And that ground is your environment. An environment that is out of alignment with your new vibrational identity can sabotage even the purest intentions. Consider the space where you live. Does it reflect who you are becoming or who you once were? The objects you keep, the clothes you wear, the arrangement of your space. All of these carry a frequency. And that frequency may be anchoring you in a past version of yourself. Changing your environment is therefore an act of vibrational reprogramming. It is creating a space that supports your new frequency, that reinforces your new identity, that fuels your transformation. This change does not have to be radical. Small changes, made with intention, can have a profound impact. A new furniture arrangement, a color palette that elevates your emotional state, the introduction of natural elements that bring calm. All of these contribute to an environment that supports your journey. And as your environment changes, your mind responds, because it feels that the new is safe, that the new is familiar, that the new is your new home. By aligning your environment with your new identity, you create a virtuous cycle. Your environment reinforces your mind. Your mind reinforces your behavior reinforces your identity. And in this cycle, transformation ceases to be a constant effort and becomes a natural state of being. A state where the external and the internal are in harmony, where the space around you is a reflection of your soul, where every detail of your environment whispers, "You are on the right path." What Napoleon Hill would say about your nighttime habits. The way you end your day is one of the most underrated practices in building a new reality. Napoleon Hill understood that the subconscious, before falling asleep, becomes even more receptive. It is in this state of transition between the conscious and the unconscious that the deepest seeds are planted. And if you end the day with noise, distraction, anxiety, or guilt, this is what your field carries during the hours in which your rational mind sleeps, but your vibration remains active. The last 2 hours before sleeping are a silent mirror of your inner life. It is during these hours that patterns are reaffirmed or undone. And even if you believe you are resting, what really happens is a vibrational programming. If you fall asleep in peace, in gratitude, with intention, your field aligns with what you want to create. But if you fall asleep in emotional exhaustion, with racing thoughts, with unresolved emotional issues, your body vibrates this throughout the night. And when you wake up, without even realizing it, you resume the cycle you tried to change the day before. Hill would say that these final moments of the day are a rehearsal for the life you are creating, a rehearsal that repeats itself night after night. And like all rehearsals, it shapes the show. Therefore, what you read, hear, think, feel, and say before closing your eyes has more impact than any great decision of the day. It is in this nocturnal silence that you program your field with images, emotions, and beliefs. And over time, these silent seeds become manifest reality. It is not about creating a perfect routine. It is about creating a ritual of presence, a conscious closing that tells your body, your mind, your spirit, I am in tune with what I want to live. And this attunement, repeated with intention, transforms not only your nights, but the energetic structure of who you are becoming. because the life you dream of begins where no one sees, in the dark, in the silence, in the rest, in the invisible choice to end the day as if planting tomorrow. The myth of morning motivation, why it weakens you. There is a widespread belief that the first hours of the day determine your success, that you need to wake up inspired, productive, vibrant. But this expectation, although well-intentioned, can become a burden. Because the truth is that not all days start with light, and expecting motivation to be present every morning is like building your house on sand. It is unstable, it is illusory, and even worse, it creates guilt. Because when you wake up without will, without energy, without clarity, you start to believe that you are wrong, that you are failing, that you have lost your rhythm. But what if true strength was not in motivation, but in permanence, in the ability to keep going even without momentum, to continue even without euphoria, to trust even when your body still feels heavy? It is in these moments that you are being shaped, because it is easy to act when you feel inspired. It is difficult to sustain commitment in the absence of enthusiasm, and that is when your frequency begins to stabilize. Because you start to act not out of emotion, but out of identity, out of decision, out of truth. Morning motivation is volatile, but alignment is permanent. It doesn't depend on how you wake up. It depends on who you choose to be, day after day. And this choice begins with silence, with conscious breathing, with the simple gesture of getting up even if you don't feel like it. Because over time, this gesture becomes a vibrational code. Your body learns that it doesn't need euphoria to move, that it doesn't need momentum to fulfill a purpose. And this stability, this coherence, this silent constancy is what builds the new version of you. It's not about waking up ready. It's about waking up present. And in this presence, remembering that each morning is a rebirth, not always exciting, but always sacred. And that's enough, because those who walk with constancy arrive, even without rushing, even without applause, even without motivation, because they no longer need it. They only need the truth that vibrates when everything else is silent. Creative visualization, plus heart coherence, the combo that manifests. The mind can imagine, the heart can feel, but it is in the union between the two that manifestation finds its true power. Creative visualization, when done only with the mind, can seem powerful. But if the body does not feel, it does not vibrate. And if it does not vibrate, it does not create. The key is to synchronize. Synchronize what you see with what you feel. Synchronize mental images with real emotions. And that is where heart coherence comes in, a physiological and energetic state in which the heart and the brain begin to operate in harmony. When you access this state, your frequency rises measurably. Your electromagnetic field expands. Your intuition is activated. And more than that, the message you send to the universe becomes clear. Because the universe does not respond to what you think. It responds to what you vibrate with consistency. And the most powerful vibration arises when the heart is involved, when the mental image finds shelter in the chest, when the emotion aligns with the intention. Manifestation then ceases to be a request and becomes a vibrational confirmation. There is no need for long rituals, but emotional truth is essential. 7 minutes. That is enough time to activate this union. Close your eyes, visualize in detail, breathe rhythmically, feel your body as if it were already real, not as a fantasy, but as an anticipated reality. The mind sees, the heart feels, the body believes, and the field responds. It is simple, but it is profound, because it is not about convincing the universe. It is about aligning yourself with it, speaking its language, and that language is that of vibrational coherence. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Visualization ceases to be an effort. It becomes a state of silent certainty, a state where you do not ask, you live, where you do not project, you incarnate, where you do not expect, you vibrate. And this vibration, sustained with love, consistency, and intention, is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, between desire and manifestation, between the you of now and the you that already exists. waiting to be remembered. When external reality begins to bend, signs that you have entered the manifestation zone, there comes a moment, subtle and silent, when the world around you begins to respond differently, not with great upheavals, but with subtleties that, for those who are attentive, have the weight of a miracle, a delay that prevents an accident, an unexpected call, a repeated synchronicity, an invitation that you did not expect, small signs that indicate something has changed, your frequency has adjusted, and now the field around you begins to reflect the new that is forming within. You no longer need to force, nor control, nor chase. Real manifestation does not require pursuit. It requires alignment. And when this alignment happens, external resistances begin to disappear. Doors open. Old patterns dissolve. People who vibrated at your old frequency move away, and new encounters begin to emerge. All of this happens because your field has become incompatible with what no longer resonates, and completely receptive to what is, vibrating with the same intention. It is at this stage that many doubts dissolve, because you feel in your body that you are no longer trying to manifest. You are manifesting, even if you still don't see everything clearly. Even if the results are still materializing, there is a new certainty, a confidence that does not shout but sustains, a peace that does not depend on external evidence, because the greatest evidence is within. It is your new way of reacting. It is silence where there was previously noise. It is lightness where there was previously struggle. This zone of manifestation is not a destination. It is a state of being, a vibrational field in which the invisible begins to take shape, not because you have done something perfect, but because you have become someone coherent, someone whose presence is, in itself, a clear request to the universe, and also a clear response. Life begins to bend, not out of obedience, but out of resonance, because everything around you is simply mirroring that which you have finally allowed yourself to feel, vibrate, and be. 81 days to rebuild not your life, but your frequency. True transformation doesn't happen when you finish a cycle. It happens when you look back and realize that you can't go back to being who you were, because the being you were no longer exists. You were honored, yes, but you were left behind with dignity, with gratitude, with love. You went through something that many are just beginning. You sustained a vibrational journey that not only reorganized your habits, but redesigned your essence. And now, there is no going back. Napoleon Hill said, "No desire can manifest without a definite plan and unshakable faith." And perhaps now you understand what this faith really means. It's not a religious belief. It's a biological certainty. It's when your entire body believes even before reality confirms it. It's when the vibration arrives first, when the heart takes the lead, and when the mind finally quiets down, because there is nothing left to prove. There is only what to live, what to sustain, what to expand. Neville Goddard completed this wisdom by saying, "You become what you feel to be true in your heart, not what you think logically." And that is the key you have carried during the past 81 days. It was not about controlling life. It was about allowing your frequency to rule. It was about letting go of what was safe, to embrace what is true. It was about dying with honor and being reborn with purpose. The greatest trap is trying to change your life with the same kind of mind that created it. And you are no longer in that trap, because now there is a new state of being pulsating within you. A lighter state, more grounded, more connected. The old mind no longer serves you. The old body has already begun to renew itself. The old energy has been dissolved, step by step, day by day. The 81 days are not a technique. They are a crossing, a vibrational bridge between who you were and who you are finally allowing yourself to be. You have not rebuilt yourself. You have remembered. You have realigned yourself. You have reactivated yourself. And now, move on. Not as someone who seeks, but as someone who vibrates, because everything you dream of is already waiting for you, not in the future, but in the frequency you have learned to sustain. And this frequency is now yours, definitely.